Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Gaurav and today we are going to tackle a question that confuses a lot of people. Should you actually buy a home in 2026? And if you do, how high can you go without putting too much pressure on your finances? To answer these questions, I have built a simple Excel tool. It is designed to help you check two things. First, what can you reasonably afford to buy in 2026? And second, whether it actually makes sense for you to buy at all given your financial situation. This is not a buy now video. The tool gives you a clear picture of your financial situation and any shortfall. So your decision is based on your numbers instead of someone's opinion. Before we get into the tool, it is worth asking why building a framework before buying actually matters. Most real estate conversations focus on one thing: prices. Are they going up or are they going down in the coming years? Those questions matter to understand the market, but they are not enough for you as a buyer. Much more useful questions are: does buying fit my situation right now? What is a realistic price range for me? And if I do buy, what happens to my monthly lifestyle? Does it take a hit? And exactly how much can I stretch without impacting my lifestyle by a lot? This is what this framework is built to answer. And there are three main parts to it. First is the readiness check. This part looks at your income, your existing cash, and how much cash you would have left after your down payment and closing costs. The purpose is straightforward. Buying a home should not leave you in a position where a small problem turns into a crisis because there is no financial buffer. The second part is about price range. Here the tool works backwards from what percentage of your monthly income you want to allocate to housing costs. This is different from a bank pre-approval, which often shows you the highest amount you can technically borrow. The framework I have used in this tool uses a band that is more realistic for your day-to-day life. The key principle is simple. Your total housing cost, including mortgage, property tax, condo fees or maintenance, and basic insurance should stay in a range that you are genuinely comfortable with. For most people, that tends to be somewhere around the low to mid 30s as a percentage of their monthly income. Once you move much above 40%, you start to feel it in other parts of your life. The third part shows the monthly impact. It compares the cost of owning to what you are paying in rent today. It shows how your monthly cash flow changes if you move from renting to owning at a specific price. So with that, let's look at some numbers. Alright, so here we have the home affordability calculator. The first sheet that we have is an input sheet. So we have a bunch of inputs that we're going to be making during this entire simulation. So that's where all of those go. We'll walk through all of them. Then we have a readiness check here, which is the second sheet. And then we have a house price affordability. And lastly, owning versus renting, where we compare what is the cost of owning a home versus renting a home. In the affordability sheet, it will tell us what's the maximum we can stretch up to without changing our financial situation. And the readiness check will tell us whether we are ready, financially ready to buy or not. So let's get to it. The first aspect here of the input sheet is the budgeting part of it. So the first row is net household income. So this is basically annual household income after tax. So let's say in your household, you make $15,000 a month in cash between the two of you, if there are two people involved. And that's after taxes. So 15,000 is what you collectively get every month in your bank account. So 15,000 into 12, that's about $180,000. So that is your net household income, not gross, but net. Household expenses. So this is non-housing related household expenses. So for example, monthly non-house related expenses like car loan, credit cards, groceries, going out, dinner, shopping, whatever. So let's say in our scenario, it's about $4,000 every month that is related to non-house related expenses. Total cash savings is basically the liquid savings that you have right now. So in our scenario, let's say I'm saying that I have $150,000 cash with me saved up that I want to use part of it or all of it to buy a home. Then we have emergency funds. So this is basically after we've bought a home, anything can happen. We can lose our job. The business can go down, COVID can happen again, anything can happen. So we want a little bit of a buffer. So after we have bought a home, the mortgage plus the non-housing related expenses, the one that we input above, how many months of that money do we want to keep saved up as an emergency buffer, as an emergency fund? So here that is 6 months. So after we bought a home, we want 6 months of emergency funds with us so that if anything happens, we are still fine. We have the room to breathe. Then we have maximum total household expenses. So this is as a percentage of net income. So let's say you make $15,000 a month And let's say you keep this number at about 65%. So what would that mean? So that would mean is basically approximately you're okay to spend $10,000 every month from the $15,000 that you're getting in your housing plus non-housing related budget, expenses. 65% or approximately $10,000 is what you are okay to spend. So you're ready to save and invest $5,000 every month. Usually, given how expensive things are and how expensive Canada is in general, 60 to 70% is a good ratio, good place to be in, because if you fall anywhere there, 30 to 40% of your monthly net income is what you are saving or investing every month after all your expenses are already, have already been budgeted for. So it's not a bad place to be in. Then we get to house related parameters. So here we have, the first thing we have is one-time expense. So basically the percentage of total savings to be used for down payment, closing cost and moving cost. Here I have put it as 64. Let's do it as 70% here. So the $150,000 that I have, that's what I had inputted above. How much of that cash do I want to use to buy a house? This could be down payment, closing cost, any other one-time initial cost that I might have. How much of that money am I comfortable using? So in this particular scenario, I'm using 70%, which is $105,000. If you change it to 65%, this number will change, $97,500. So we'll keep it to 70% for now. So I'm okay to use about $100,000 from the $150,000 to buy a house or house related expenses. I want to keep about $45,000 in this case with me just in case, right? Closing and moving cost. Now, usually closing cost is about 2% of the purchase price. Now, if you're buying a home in Toronto or if you're buying a new construction, then the cost will be higher. It could be 3 to 4%. But for a resale property outside of Toronto, you're looking at 2% approximately. So I have used an $800,000 as an approximate figure of the kind of house, the purchase price of the house that we want to buy. 2% of that, 16,000, 15,000. I'm using 15,000 here. You're free to change it. So once we have determined, we've made an assumption that we are buying an X $100,000 house and that's the closing cost, the down payment is auto-calculated. We were using $105,000 of our savings. $15,000 goes in your closing cost plus moving cost because, there will be a land transfer rebate as well, land transfer tax rebate and all of that. So 15,000. The remaining amount then out of 105 minus 15 is 90,000. So that is the amount you are open to using for your down payment. So that's how this is calculated. Now we have housing expenses budgeted as a percentage of your net income. So let's say, again, going with the same example, you make $15,000 a month or your household makes $15,000 a month. Now, in that case, how much money are you okay to spend as part of your housing expenses, mortgage, maintenance cost, what have you, right? So in this particular scenario, what we have is 35%, which is $5,250. You obviously, if you change it to 40%, this number will change to 6,000 and whatnot. I'm going to keep it 35%. Now, the general rule is 35% of gross income, but things are expensive. I am using net income here because everybody associates their expenses with the cash that they are getting every month. So it's 35% of net income. You can change the ratio if you want. This comes out to about 5,250. So of 15,000, I'm okay to spend 5,000 on my house. Mortgage and interest, I've assumed 4% right now. You can change it to whatever. Amortization, if you're a first-time home buyer, it's going to be 30 years. Property taxes, usually for a decent resale size property in West GTA, might be around $3,600 a year. That is about $300 a month. If you're buying in East GTA or it's a newer property, bigger property, that sort of thing, this might be higher. You can find this information on any realtor app, House Sigma or what have you. You can find a property that you like, look at the annual taxes for that, and then back calculate this. Condo fees, maintenance, again, if you're buying a POTL, condo apartment, condo townhouse, this is going to be there. In our case, I have assumed that I'm buying a freehold with no fees. So that's $0 for me here. Utilities, $300 a month. You can again change it. Home insurance, $120 a month. Again, you can change it if you want. The current rent is assumed for, there's a $2,500 rent assumed that you put in whatever rent you have at the moment, and then we're going to use it for the owning versus renting scenario. All right. So that's all the inputs. Now let's look at the readiness check. So, okay. So what this sheet is going to do is going to take all the inputs that we had put in and going to give you a result. Basically, we have an emergency fund check that we are failing by a certain amount. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Let's look at what we have here. So we have a total household expense budget check, which we are passing. How are we passing this? So let's look at this. Net monthly income is $15,000. That's what we had assumed initially. Housing expense budgeted as a percentage of your net income, 35%. Again, 5,250 is what we had assumed in the previous sheet. Other household expenses, $4,000. That's again our assumption. So the total expenses come out to $9,250 after we've bought a home within this particular budget. This comes out to 62% of your net income. So 9,250 divided by $15,000. Now here, we were okay to spend up to 65%, approximately $10,000 out of 15 as part of the overall expenses. If I change this to 60, so this is $9,000 out of 15,000, we will see that even this has failed, and it's saying it's failed because there's a $250 difference. 9,000 is what this number should have been. It's 9,250. So again, you are free to change this ratio, and based on your expectation of what your household expenses should be as a percentage of your net income, your household budget check will pass or fail, and it will keep you posted as to why it failed if it did. Let's look at the emergency fund check now. Now, the emergency fund shortfall, there is a shortfall of $10,500. Let's look at it. Let's continue on this part. So 62% is where we had left it. Now let's carry on. Cash left after down payment, closing cost, and moving cost is $45,000. Why? We had $150,000 cash. We were okay to use $105,000 in our, closing cost, moving cost, down payment, all of that. The difference is $45,000, which is what we see here. The emergency fund target that we have is a 6-month target. So 9,250 multiplied by 6. So this is $55,000. So there's a $10,000 shortfall. Now, how can we basically pass this check? It means we need $10,500 more. Simple as that. So we basically wait until we can save up some extra cash. Let's say we've saved up to a point where this $150,000 becomes $165,000. We've added another $15,000 over the next few months or year. We have $165,000 here. Now, when I change this number, you will notice that because we are using the one-time housing expense as 70% of this amount, obviously this $105,000 will automatically change because it is dynamic. We don't want to do that. We are okay to use only $105,000 as part of our housing expense. Any extra cash that we are saving up, that's for our emergency fund. So when I change this to $165,000, 70% automatically gives us $115,000. We don't want this. So we will have to reduce the percentage here. So let's say 64%. That's $105,600, approximately, $105,000. So our expense, one-time expense as a percentage of the total amount changes. It reduces because our savings increased and we want to use only $105,000 for our home buying. So the down payment and everything remains more or less the same. And now we will see that the emergency fund check has passed. Why? Because the cash left after down payment, closing cost, and moving cost is $59,400, and the emergency fund target was $55,500. So the cash we have is more than the emergency fund. So we are able to purchase a home by by basically spending $105,000 in down payment plus closing cost plus whatnot, and buy a house. So now the question comes, I am ready to buy a house. I am ready to spend some money, which is $5,250 on my housing expenses per month. I'm ready for all of that. What does that translate into in terms of buying power? And B, what's the maximum I can go for without breaking any of these ratios, without breaking my emergency fund check, without breaking my household expense check? So let's look at that. The house price affordability sheet. Now here we have the household income as $15,000. Our monthly expenses as 35% of our $15,000, which is $5,250 if you recall. And then property taxes, utilities, maintenance, and all of those things are here as well. Adjusting for these, your monthly mortgage approximately comes to $4,500. So basically 4,500 plus all of these will come to 5,250 approximately. So 4,500 is what we are okay to pay as a mortgage, assuming a 4% interest rate and a 30-year amortization. And we have the down payment as $90,600. Now, most people who buy a home around the 800,000 or a million or 1.4 million and that sort of thing, they try to do at least a 10% down payment. 10% or more is the general behavior that I've seen in the industry. But that doesn't mean you have to do 10%. You have the option to do a minimum down payment, although not recommended, but you do have the option. 10% is generally a good number. So that is why, while you have this $90,600 and this particular monthly mortgage amount, it translates to about $1 million in maximum house price affordability. When we had calculated this entire thing, closing cost plus down payment, if you recall, I had told you that I had assumed a $800,000 purchase. So 2% of the $800,000 is about $16,000. So that's our closing cost. If we assume $1 million worth of purchase, then this number goes up to about $20,000. So let's change it there. So $20,000, automatically our down payment goes down by a bit because the total cash doesn't really change. It's $105,000. So if we are basically we're buying a house by doing a lesser down payment and moving the funds to closing cost. What does that do? So again, our maximum house price affordability was $1,045,000 or something. Now it's $1,038,000 because our minimum down payment has gone down by this much. Factoring in your monthly mortgage and the minimum down payment, you can go up to this point. But usually, because you want to do a 10% down payment, this would come out to about $800,000 to $850,000 of your purchase price if you want to do a 10% down payment. For minimum, you can go up to $1 million. So you can stretch up to $1 million while ensuring that your mortgage stays somewhere here if you're getting this rate and based on the down payment that you have at the moment in this particular scenario. If you don't stretch up to $1 million, then this number will decrease even further. So your ratios will improve even further. But this is what you can stretch up to. So this sheet gives you a good idea of till what point can you financially stretch without really changing the emergency fund ratio, without really changing your monthly mortgage amount. And now let's look at owning versus renting. So owning versus renting is pretty straightforward. So assumptions here are different from everything else that we saw in the rest of the sheet. Let's say we're buying a $1 million property. We're doing $100,000 down payment. We can change it right here. And the loan amount comes out to $900,000. Now, this is not exactly true. The loan amount will not come out to $900,000. The loan amount will come out to about $923,000-$24,000, somewhere around that point. The reason being mortgage insurance. You will have to pay a mortgage insurance if you're doing a down payment which is under 20%. The mortgage insurance is usually calculated on a scale, but for a 10% down payment, it's about 3.1% of the purchase price. So feel free to add your CMHC insurance, and I'll try and when I provide the link of this particular file in the description, I'll try and include that in this particular field as well. So when you download it, you will have CMHC insurance added here as well. But continuing on, I've assumed a 3.9% interest rate and I've assumed a 30-year amortization. Monthly mortgage comes out to $4,245. You have these additional costs, and I've left a line item for other. Maybe you just want a $200 buffer because you're moving into a bigger property, something unknown could come, that sort of thing. So your overall cost would become $4,965. If your current rent is $2,500, this is a shortfall of $2,465 per month, or $29,580 in a year. With that, what we have is this entire sheet, which will tell you, what our readiness is, whether the emergency fund check is there or not, whether the household expense budget check is there or not, what is the maximum we can stretch our budget to if we want to without changing all of these ratios, and what's the difference between owning versus renting. And feel free to download this thing and play around with your own numbers to understand and make a logical, financially backed decision. Now that you have a sense of how your own numbers behave in the tool, it helps to place them inside the broader 2026 environment. Interest rates have come down from their peak, but are still higher than the ultra-low levels during the pandemic. Borrowing is more expensive than in 2020 and 2021, but the environment is more stable than the rapid rate hikes in 2022 and 2023. Supply in many Greater Toronto Area suburbs has improved, and cities now have a good inventory of homes with less buyers, thus allowing for a bit more negotiating room for any buyers in the market. Taken together, this suggests that 2026 is not going to be a buy at any cost year. It will be a more measured year in terms of market pricing. So how do you put everything together? Well, if the tool tells you that you're ready to buy and your job and income are reasonably stable, you expect to stay in the same general area for at least 5 years, and the monthly payment still leaves room for normal life decisions, then 2026 can be a reasonable time to buy. If the tool shows you that buying would leave you stretched, or your income is uncertain, or you don't have enough cash after closing, then waiting is not a mistake. Remember, the goal is not to buy as soon as possible. The goal is to buy when your situation and the numbers line up in a way that you are comfortable with. If you would like to take your own situation and run it through the same framework I used in this video, then you can download the tool using the link in the description and test different scenarios for yourself. If you would like me to walk through your numbers with you and help you interpret what they mean for your plans, you can connect with me using the book a call link in the description. If you found this video helpful and you want to understand the greater Toronto real estate in a deeper, more practical way, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. I post research-driven content to help you make smarter financial decisions, whether you're thinking about buying a home or building long-term wealth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.